So as we move to our first session on defining the nation-to-nation paradigm, let me first hand the mic over to Patrick Kelly, who, among his many titles, is board chair of the Victoria Foundation and member of the International Advisory Board at Gustafsson. Patrick, over to you.
Merci, Sébastien. Tsotsin tel squeak, to le camel. My name in our ancestral way is Tsotsin. In 2010, I had the privilege of being bestowed this name from my family, from Le Camel and Chelis up in the Harrison Lake area. During that ceremony, there were 1,000 people invited to the feast who came. Tsotsin is the male version of the name Tsots, which comes from my grandmother's line on my mother's side, and it's a name that goes back many, many, many generations. During the ceremony, the witnesses were called. My friend David Suzuki was one of them. There were others many that were called from nations around the area, including from here. When the witnesses speak to a person receiving an ancestral name, they talk to you about your responsibilities. One of the things that was made very clear to me as a person receiving this honor is that I needed to be able to carry myself in a certain way to honor the name and its history and its meaning of for the family. And that is a lifelong obligation. It is not something that one does this week and kind of forgets about it in 2 weeks. And, it is something that is a lifelong responsibility. Principles are critical to the relationships between people. And you heard that from Elder Marianne Thomas and Chief Andy Thomas and Chief Ron Sam yesterday. And it's critically important for relationships that we're all considering in the context of this session to keep those principles in mind. And respect was a critical one. And if you look at the 4 generations of the ways in which Aboriginal peoples in Canada have been dealt with by the heavy hand of laws and things like that, we have a lot of work to do on the respect side in the relationships between first the Indigenous peoples of Canada and the country. In our protocols, there are some very important things that go on. I recall, as a young man, I was once in Gitxsan territory, and I was facilitating a meeting. And what ended up happening as this one particular chief, a highly respected hereditary leader from the Gitxsan Nation, was speaking. And being a young, impatient, and what I thought was going to be a focused facilitator, I inadvertently made a protocol error in which I interrupted the chief as he was speaking, thinking that I was going to do a good thing and keep the agenda moving. Seriously wrong. And I was called on that immediately by the chiefs in the room, the leaders. And in no uncertain terms was it made clear to me that this is not done. I was showing disrespect to the chief. And upon hearing all of the responses to me for my action, my behavior, and the inappropriate action that I took to show disrespect for the chief, I made immediate amends and offered a gift to the chief, offered my apology in front of everyone right then and there. And, it was a sharp lesson learned for me. One other time, I also made a protocol error. I was in another meeting, and I understand the protocol with leaders is that when senior leaders speak, they speak first. Those of us that are younger, we speak after the senior leaders speak. And in that particular situation, I made the mistake of allowing a younger person to speak before a senior, well-established leader. And I too was called on that one. And, a protocol faux pas on my part. And, I ended up, again, immediately addressing the matter. And I ended up talking, personally to the person with whom I had, done the protocol faux pas, offered him a gift. In both cases, respect was restored because I acted immediately, acknowledged my mistakes, made measures to immediately restore the honor of the people whom I had slighted in some way or another. Yesterday, in the plenary session, we saw some interesting exchanges between members of the panel and a young person who spoke. And at those of you that were there may recall, Chief Ron Sam had asked the person at a certain point during the conversation to please show respect. And it did not go as one would have hoped. After the session was over last night, Elder Marianne Thomas spoke to the young man and had calmed him down and had asked that he consider what he needed to do, which was to formally apologize to the chiefs to whom he had shown disrespect. I talked last night with Chief Andy Thomas, Chief Ron Sam, and that is indeed how they feel. They feel that they were treated disrespectfully. In our protocol and our custom, they will need to be apologized to, and Chief Andy Thomas mentioned that the way for his restoring his reputation and views on this is to do it, the person would have to do it in the longhouse. And there are protocols around that. I know the chief of the community where this young man comes from, where he mentioned he was from. I know that chief to be a very honorable man. I just want to mention this to you because, it was an uncomfortable situation for many last night, certainly for me, hearkening back to my own personal experiences with protocol faux pas that I had done. And so I just wanted you all to know that, because when we talk about respect and building trust and building understanding, our cultures have been around these places now. We have lived for 500 generations. And a lot of our cultures, customs, and traditions have evolved in some very, very significant ways. And you're just hearing in our traditional protocols some of the basic elements of how one shows and restores and maintains respect, especially for leaders. And so I just wanted to share that with you because, we will be following up on this matter to ensure that the young man has the opportunity to learn what respect means and how one deals with respected chiefs and leaders. And so I just wanted to share that with you so that you understand these are some of the things that when we talk about protocol and our ways, our teachings, this is what it's about. Quite good.